Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Test, Optimize, and Scale. Very excited to have David Willis here with us today, the first film producer in the U.S. to raise over $1 million with Equity Crowdfunding. Also, the founder of the Equity Crowdfunding Masterclass, encapsulating all of the findings from his own campaigns. They're in a course for everyone. David, thanks for being here with us today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jason.
And we were actually on a panel last year together, Digital Entertainment World live conference, back when those were happening.
Yes.
And enjoyed our panel, enjoyed everything about your background. Could you share your story with the audience? Tell them everything it is that you do.
Sure. Yeah, I'm in show business. Been in show business all my life, and worked on some network TV shows, and I wanted to make independent film. And the usual path of creating independent film is of financing those films is very difficult. And I tried for a few years, and we have a team with some pretty good credits, and Frasier and other shows and Simpsons and things like that. But we're having trouble raising the money because we were making a Christmas family movie. It's easy to raise money for like horror films, but it's harder for other kinds of things, even though those films do well. So I got frustrated, and I saw that equity crowdfunding became a law, and that people were doing it, and it had just started. And so I went online to a Start Engine and WeFunder and Republic and all those sites and looked at those campaigns, and it just a light bulb went off in my head, because I looked at Kickstarter and Indiegogo, where people just give you money, and you can't, people are not going to give you $1 million unless you're famous and have a movie they really want to see, because they've already seen like the first part or something. So an investment was the way to go. It's just a huge light bulb for me. And because when you're making a movie, when you're raising money, you pitch it. And people pitch things on these, on the equity crowdfunding websites. They do a video and they say, here's my business. Here's what I'm going to use the money for. And in our business, we say, here's our movie. It's about this, it's about that. And it's got to feel like this. And so I thought, this is great, because I've been pitching to individual rich people around the country, and they were the wrong people. They didn't get it. They didn't really understand it. And so I thought, well, I'm going to pitch it to millions of people at once. And if some of those people, if not enough of those people, of a million people don't like it, then I shouldn't make this movie. Rather than one or two random rich people. So I thought, I'm going to figure this out. So I studied for like 3 months. I studied every single campaign, because there were only about 40 or 50 campaigns up at that time. And I analyzed every one, every word, every video obsessively. And because when I became a screenwriter, I studied scripts, I studied movies. I wrote down every word obsessively, just because that's how you learn. You see what works. And I saw what worked in campaigns. I saw what didn't. I contacted CEOs of companies that had successful raises, and many of them were kind enough to get back to me and tell me what worked. And these were not movies. Nobody was doing a movie. These were tech companies. They were making routers and drones, and also selling food. And one guy was doing a farm technology. It was all different things, but the same principles apply no matter what your business is. And I'm not a business guy. I'm in show business. I was not a business guy at that time. I learned to be. I did not get into show business to do paperwork. But I learned how, and I'm no genius. If I could figure out how to do that because I wanted it enough, then I figured it out, and I launched my campaign, and we raised $1 million in 6 months. And I learned a lot along the way. Made some mistakes, did some things that were smart, that weren't mistakes, and the smart things outnumbered the mistakes, and
all part of the process, right?
Yeah, that's my story.
Very nice. Very nice. So you were able to use these tools to really amplify, and instead of going to one individual investor,
Yes.
show traction and attract more audiences as a result.
Right.
Did you have an anchor investor? Did you have any groups or individuals to lead the
No,
round, or any existing audience?
no, no. People
Wow.
think, oh, you're in Hollywood, you know, rich people, rich people must invest it. Out of the $1 million we raised, only about 2% was invested by people that we knew. And they invested later, or some friends would put in $100 in the beginning just to encourage us, because they knew how hard we were working, right?
Sure.
But
Sure.
so out of that million, only about 20 something thousand was put in by people we actually knew, which we're very, very grateful for. But when you do something like Kickstarter, it's really a lot of friends and family. You basically go into your friends and family and begging for money. I mean, it sounds dramatic, but it's true, and you have to explain to your grandma what Kickstarter is. And
Right.
And I had a friend who did a Kickstarter campaign and told her grandma about it, and her grandma mailed her a physical check because they don't know this. It's great. It's great that she was supporting her, but excuse me. Sorry. So yeah.
I have worked on the copy for many of those emails, even for Kickstarter, about, hey, this is what crowdfunding is. This is what I do for my business, in case you didn't know. And here's why it's meaningful if you're able to participate, if you're able to showcase, with us in terms of how many people back the idea. And many of those principles being true and consistent for equity crowdfunding. And I've definitely worked on email drips and the reminders for those initial messages on how impactful it can be to be able to bring a crowd in the early stages of the campaign. So how are you able to do it then? How are you able to bring an audience? How are you able to build from the ground up this pool of interested parties to physically invest in the idea?
Well, I didn't want to put a lot of money into it because I figured this was not a workable model if you had to put in a ton of money up front. So I only started with $2,000. 500 or 600 went to lawyers' fees, filing fees, just to get started. And most of the rest went to make video. And then because of rolling closes, which your audience probably knows about, where you can take money out as you raise it, that's how we paid for advertising. And that's how we paid for everything else. So the way we did it is, since these sites have, at the time they had, we started had about 150,000 registered users. Now, I don't know how many of those are regular users who check it every day or every week for new investments, but there were enough active users to get us up to $25,000 in the first 3 days. Because then and now, I think it's kind of like a gold rush time, because a lot of companies don't know about this yet. There are like more investors than companies. So I have friends who want to make movies, and I say, go online, raise money with equity crowdfunding, because not many people are doing it. So there are investor dollars sitting around looking for investments. These people go to the site and register because they are looking for investments. So like, you're halfway there, because they're already interested parties. I mean, if you go to if you're single and you go to a singles event, hey, the people there are going to be single. So it's better than approaching random people, There people have interest. So we got up to $25,000 in the first 3 days. And then we took that money out and, started buying Facebook ads to increase that. And when you raise a little money, people notice. And it starts a little bit of a snowball effect. So.
Sure. There's a strength in numbers. You want that line around the block and feel people don't even know why they're waiting. They see that traction. They see you putting on more and more week after week, and they want to get involved. They don't want to miss out on the deal.
Yeah, they use something, a word that kept occurring to me as I was doing the campaign was comfort. When people see other people invest, they feel comfortable. They feel comfort because, oh, other people are doing it. It's so if they look at your page and they feel comfortable with you and your company and your message, and they see that other people have done it, that's a big key to them wanting to invest, I think. I'm sure that's probably not like an economical term, but that's the word that kept popping into my head as we did this.
Sure. I believe for crowdfunding, it is. Comfort is definitely an element to it. And we see it directly represented in the conversion rate. So
Yes.
if a group has, 5,000, 20,000 raised, it's going to be a lot tougher for them to convert cold traffic that it's, barely at the awareness stage of a user journey, generally 7 touch points or more. But even if at that early point, the raise amounts are too low, the volume of investors is too low, it could be somewhat of an empty restaurant sensation, as I've said before, where you're there, everything looks good, but you don't know why more people aren't getting involved, more people aren't investing, more people aren't backing it. And then once 50,000's passed, 100,000, 200, 500, all the way up, when we're close to 1 million, the conversion rate is significantly greter. Were there any milestones like that for you? Were there different areas where you saw things really accelerate?
Yeah, one of the most important things about running a campaign is when your campaign is active, people, the way the system works is you cannot answer most questions that people ask you except on your campaign page for legal reasons, the way it's set up. You can't give information to people unless you give it to everyone. So there's a space on these pages, your campaign, people ask questions. And I tried to answer every question within the hour or within the day, because then they know I'm responsive, I care, I'm there. Because I would see, that's one of the mistakes I saw other campaigns make. I'd see unanswered questions from a month ago, and why would I give you my money? You don't seem to care. So one of the questions I got was from an investor who I saw. A lot of the investors will identify themselves and they have a page on there, and you'll see, oh, they invested in this company and that company. And so one investor, potential investor who had invested in several other companies in the Start Engine, he was asking some really good questions. And one of his questions was, he says, I'm interested in investing, I think it was $10,000. And we were like, oh, yay. And he said, but why should I invest now instead of waiting for 3 months from now when your campaign is about to end? That way my money can stay where it is, where it's earning interest. And that's a really good question. And I said,
phrased well.
Yes. And I said to him, because we need to raise X amount of dollars to make the movie we want. And if we don't get momentum, we won't get that amount of investment. And we cannot get momentum unless people invest now. I said, so frankly, it's dominoes. If we don't do it now, it won't happen in 3 months. And his reply was, that's a good answer. And boom, there was the $10,000. And which was another lesson for me, which was, gee, should I say, oh, because we're making a great movie and you should jump on board now because we're awesome, or what? And I thought, no, I'm just going to spell out exactly the financial reason why. So that was another thing. It's like, don't sugarcoat it. Just be honest, be positive, but be completely and utterly honest, because people will sense it. I mean, you sense it, I sense it when we look at other things, so just be totally straight, then they'll decide if it's right for them. Because one of the things—
Transparency.
Yes, transparency. One of the things I learned from an old time independent Hollywood producer, but this applies to other businesses. When you're trying to raise money for an independent film, he said, if somebody is not the type of person to invest in a film, nothing you say, no charts you show him, no information, nothing, no stars, nothing you show them is going to convince them to invest. If somebody is the type of person to invest in film, nothing you say will stop them.
I like that. I have not heard it worded in that fashion, and that makes
true.
Perfect sense.
If somebody wants to invest in risky startups, which a lot of startups are inherently risky, but hopefully greater risk, greater reward is the idea. And if somebody is in that state of mind and they've got $100, $10,000, depends on who they, what their level of comfort is, or $100,000 that they're going to invest. If that's their mindset and you have the right type of investment for them and you present yourself well, you can't stop them.
Sure. If it fits what they're looking for, if it's reflecting perhaps headlines that they've read about in the media that day and weeks leading up to it, if everything about your deal is sound and looks like it is that moving ship that they're seeking out. We see a lot of experience-seeking investors. They want to be part of a investment in a given vertical that fits a certain mold and be part of the ride. They want to be involved in the next Facebook or the next big entertainment project or any type of growing industry where they can have that as part of their portfolio, not necessarily to retire on, more in the high risk category, if anything, but to be part of that success story. And I want to go back to the transparency. I like how you worded everything right out of the gate and talk to his interests, talk to the investor's interests about why his investment could be more valuable if he puts it in now than at a later time, why that position could be more worthwhile because of the momentum it's going to produce. And by having more people, gather at that point. Were there other metrics? Were there other points in the raise, whether 100K, 200K, 500K, that you saw far more investors jump on board in quick windows of time? Was there a critical mass or different stages of the campaign where you really saw things grow at a quicker rate?
If somebody made a larger investment, a $10,000, $25,000 investment, and people, because you go, if they're watching the page and they haven't invested and they just want to see how it goes, and they see the investment level jump up like that, then they get the fear of missing out. They feel the momentum and they think, gee, I better get in before somebody else invests more and it hits the cap. So if they were sort of on the fence time-wise, that will generate a lot more. Another big point we got was when we had an influencer. If you get somebody who's an influencer, someone, it's got a lot of social media followers who talks about the project, then you'll see more traffic, which goes to the decision. This is something people ask me who've already done their research and are about to start a campaign. When you start your campaign, you have to decide what your minimum investment is going to be. It's going to be $100, $500, $1,000, whatever it is. If you have a higher minimum investment, you'll have fewer investors, which is fewer people that you have to take care of in the end, investors. And if you have a lower number like $100, you're going to have more investors. And some people think, well, I don't want to bother with $100 investors. They think that. But I say, here's the thing. We had $100 investors because every person who invests $100, there's a good chance they're going to talk about us on Facebook. So they're investing in us and we're getting free advertising, free traffic to our page, to our investment page. It just really helps to get the word out. So we had a lot of $100 investors and they attract the bigger investors. Our average investment was a little over $1,000 average, but we had 893 investors. And to people who think, well, I don't want to deal with investors, I go, look, you set up an email program, a mail program, MailChimp, whatever you're going to use. And here's how you update your investors. Write the email, click, send. Doesn't matter if it's 2 investors or 2,000 investors. It's the same thing. So those were the 2 big things. When there'd be a spike or what we got a social media influencer. And then there were smaller moments when podcasts like this one, if you're doing a podcast with people and when bloggers, the right kind of bloggers talk about your investment, then that can drive more serious investors to you. Because if those bloggers have authority, and that was another thing, is we contacted 1,000 bloggers, okay, over the 6 months. Very labor intensive.
Numbers game.
Yeah. And only about 20 bloggers wrote about us. A lot of the bloggers wanted us to pay them. And we decided not to pay them because we didn't know. We were ignorant of this whole area. And we thought this could just be a money pit. We have no idea if it will produce a return. So the ones who wrote about us for free, and they wrote about us in their own way. And they said, this is a risky investment. It's a movie. It's risky, but here's what it's about. It looks like fun. And so it attracted people who wanted something fun and like the risk, which is the perfect movie investor for us.
Sure.
You know? And one blogger wrote about us that we didn't contact. He put us on a top 10 list of unusual investments, which is, he had things like, you can invest in poker players, which I didn't know, but you can actually invest in a poker player's stake and other just like crazy, but absolutely real investments. And he put us on that list. And we got, within days, we got a little over $20,000 in investment from his readers. So we contacted him and said, we'd like to pay you to write about us again, please. So the only blogger we paid was someone who wrote about us from his, and I said, just write whatever the hell you want. It's not an ad, just because, again, transparency. You don't want to, you can't be all fluffy about it.
Sure.
And he just wrote about it more in depth, had the same opinion, and it got us a few more people. It only cost us not that much, a couple $100, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
So
put together another authentic piece, get it out to your audience. Did the second one do as well as the first?
Not as much, but I think it was like $8,000 or $9,000 came in from the second one.
Still a great return.
Yeah, and it gets it out there. Absolutely, it gets it out there. And we hired a few people at minimum wage to just come over and sit on our computers and just send out all these emails to the bloggers. But it's very labor intensive because you can't just email a blogger and say, hey, here's an investment, please write about it, because they're not going to open it. They're going to throw it away. They're not going to look. You have to say, hi, blogger, I really liked your post about this financial instrument. I thought it was really interesting. And I like that you did this. You have to engage in a dialogue back and forth for 2 or 3 emails before you pitch it. So it's very labor intensive. It's not as efficient as Facebook. We did those before we figured out Facebook, before we got advertising specialists.
Sure. And you're talking about influencers. You did blogger outreach, which 20 out of 1,000, that's still a 2% conversion rate. If I look at email marketing success rates, that is actually more average. And I say that to the audience because I do believe it requires that type of volume, that type of numbers game. It's not just a matter of reaching out to your 3 favorite publishers and giving up if it's not working. You had mentioned influencers. Wanted to ask, what about strategic partners? Was there anyone involved with the film that was able to post about it? Was there any promotions that you got from the team?
Yes. Before we talk about that, you mentioned it's a numbers game. And when you say stuff like, you're absolutely right. I totally agree. But when you say phrases like that, people like me who are just trying to run our business, we're not finance people. We're doing our business. And when you say it's a numbers, before I did this, talk like that would make me worried. I would think, oh man, that's a whole other profession. I have to learn that. It's numbers. And I would just be like, I can't do that. I'm going to fail, until I did this. And I realized I translated what you said, numbers game. I translate that into the more people you reach, the more likely you are to find people who think, literally, they think, gosh, I'm really glad they found me. I'm very excited about this company and what they're doing. I mean, maybe other people didn't need that translation, but when I first started, I did, because it sounded so abstract to me. But what it means is that these are people who, if I'm going through and I see some product that I really like I saw some something for a Dolly Parton mug that said cup. The mug said "Cup of Ambition," from her song. That's a lyric from her song 9 to 5. And I was so glad I saw that ad, because I love Dolly Parton and I love that song. And so I'm glad that advertiser found me. Their numbers game worked. I'm happy. When we premiered our movie in North Hollywood at a festival, full house, and there were about 100 investors in the audience. And after the movie, they came up to me and shook my hand, and they thanked me for letting them invest in the movie. And even now I get emotional about it. Jason, I'm not ashamed to say I almost cried, because we worked so hard on that film and so hard to find these people. And the fact that it meant something to them. And I don't care what business you're in, but so I just want your listeners to know, when they hear numbers game, it really means people who are happy to connect with you and support your business and be your partner. So anyway, I'm sorry.
Absolutely. No, that's perfect. I've said that so many times that there is a bit of a disconnect from the words, and the way you dove further in there is the exact way to say it. It's not just a number. It's to say, hey, if you reach out to 10 people, maybe 5 see the messaging. And if 2 decide to respond, and maybe 1 or 2 decide they think they're going to respond and they just don't for whatever reason, perhaps they forget about it, but you still get that 2, it's meaningful to reach out to that 10, because as you said, they could be those that are so grateful that you got in touch with them. This is exactly what they didn't even know they were looking for, but is perfect for them. You then ramp that up to 100, to 1,000, you're getting to 20, 200 perhaps. It is really what I'm trying to say when I point to things like numbers game. Right. But I like the depth on where you took it there.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Jason, for people who, like me, who are coming at it from a different space, small business owners who are not, it's just so important for them to understand that it's people. I mean, I remember one of our first investors, she found us on Facebook because her a grandmother in Missouri and her granddaughter sent her a link to our ad in our campaign, and she invested $100 and she put on Facebook, "I'm so excited. I just found this Christmas movie to invest in." And we were like, oh, it was just so wonderful. It feels good to find people who are, who are people you want to be in business with.
And were there a good amount of investors who were fans of the film and wanted to then invest and had that type of background connection?
Yes, there were a good number of people, but we did a survey. We did, it's so wonderful that the things you can do on the internet. I mean, it's just amazing. But when we got our first 200 investors, we sent out a survey to them asking why they invested. Now, this is a trick I got from one of the CEOs that I contacted when I was researching this whole thing. A guy he was doing a food company, and I contacted him saying, any advice? And he said, we surveyed our first investors and asked them why, so that we could address that reason in future advertising. Because if that's a great reason, then let's find the people who have that reason. And when we asked our investors why they invested, they gave the same answer that they gave to the guy running the food company, which is they liked us. Mm-hmm. They just liked our team. They liked who we are. It's not like they, want to have a beer with us, but they liked our company. They liked the way we did things. They just liked us and felt comfortable with us. Number one reason by far. Second reason, far second distant, was they wanted to be part of making a Christmas movie. So it's a combination thereof. I mean, I think the unwritten thing, though, that unspoken thing is that if we were making a horror movie and you don't like horror movies, no matter how much you like us, you're not going to invest, So I think that's
team's not as important in that scenario.
Exactly. But if you're doing something that they like anyway, number one reason.
Team. I like it. They like you. And we try to do the same thing where we'll send emails to investors about why they invested. When I say we, us as an agency on behalf of the client, usually the issuer themselves reaching out. But assumptions are one thing. To have the data from a focus group like that, a study, even from the advertising, the analytics that we get from there, to be able to look at the numbers and say, yep, that's number one, that's number two, beyond just what we think is happening, really makes all the difference. Yeah. And not just from a vanity metric point of view, but from, hey, if we do more of this, we're going to see more results.
Right. And because otherwise you're just kind of fumbling in the dark. And I was fumbling in the dark. That's why I did 3 months of research, because I didn't know this. I'd never done Kickstarter, nothing. So I So it was just learning so much. And that's why I was, it was important to learn from the mistakes and learn to make smart decisions by finding out what other people have done that was smart and doing that and correcting your own mistakes. I mean, I wish from the very beginning, excuse me, I wish from the very beginning that I had hired an agency like you guys, that I had somebody who knows this area. First of all, they're a little hard to find right now because a lot of people don't know about this business yet. So there are not that many vendors in this area. But from the start, if I had found my Facebook specialist right away, we could have gone faster and quicker and wasted a lot less money. Because we first started with Facebook, I thought I could learn this. So I look at Facebook, I look at the ads, I look at the interface, I start making ads, I start putting out ads. I put $4,000 of my own money. I didn't want to put the company money in it because I didn't want the company to learn. I didn't want them to pay for me to learn. So I put $4,000 of my own money into Facebook ads. And I was getting the numbers so that I was paying 6 cents an impression. I was doing great. My money was being spent for all these impressions and click through and stuff like that with no investments because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So I reached out and contacted somebody who had worked for some of the really big campaigns. And I got her as a consultant, $150 an hour, best money I ever spent. And she walked me through why I needed to get a specialist. So then sure. I found an ad agency who knew Facebook ads. It was an expenditure, but that's how we got to $1 million because I realized I don't know what the hell I'm doing with the Facebook ads and I don't have time to learn. So I got people who live and breathe Facebook ads every day, because, I'm not going to, when I'm doing a movie, I'm not going to run the camera. Okay. My director of photography has spent his whole life learning how to film things. Let him do his job, so.
Absolutely. And I like how you were hands-on with it and learned and then realized the blind spots, the things you didn't know. You brought on a consultant and you were able to bring on additional resources, additional vendors, have an agency on board. We actually do the same things. We want to make sure we're running Facebook advertising or any channel that we activate on to the fullest level. So we'll talk to consultants, we'll talk to other agencies. We send our team members to different workshops so that they have the most relevant information. There's a great analogy I heard about Facebook ads where it's like a Ferrari, where anyone can sit in a Ferrari and drive around the block, but they're just not going to be able to open up the capabilities of that vehicle that a professional racer perhaps would be able to. And that's how I look at the Facebook machine as well too, where once we start putting in custom audiences, once we're optimizing, for the traffic to get that at a low rate and then to retarget off that, have a higher conversion all the way through and A/B testing enough audiences, it's just a completely different mechanism at that point. But like you said with the cameraman too, I think everyone wears their hat. Everyone has a different part on the team. We're really only working on behalf of founders and the vision, the model that they've set up, but then being able to have those other roles really extending your reach and getting it out there beyond what can be handled by any one person on a day-to-day. But it's interesting to hear how impactful Facebook ads were for you. So you were able to see some results and then incrementally scale from there?
Yes, absolutely. And the agency had patience. They had knowledge and patience, which I didn't have. They said, look, we're going to spend $25 on this particular ad for a week and see how it does. And I'm like, go big, go big. And they're saying, we have to wait to go big. So, okay. So they put up 10, 20 ads for $25, $50, saw which one did really well. And then we'd pour $5,000 into the one that did really well. So it took longer, but it was much, much more effective, and I wish we also had, mailing lists. People would sign up for a mailing list and we do the emails I send out to potential investors. And if future campaigns, I would have somebody else do the email list because we did okay with it, but I know that we could have done better. You know, if I wanted to raise, say, 5 million instead, yeah, I would really bring someone on who really, again, they live and breathe emails, and they can, you know, find the people. Because one of the things about, you know, finding your people, finding your investors, another big lesson for me is when people would say no, when they pass on the investment, I would want to convince them, you know, to no, you know, don't, you should. And I realized that that's a waste of time for them and for me. But when people say no, when they unsubscribe, when they this, however they say no in person, you move on, because you use that energy to find the next person who will say yes. The people who aren't right for you, move on. It sounds super obvious.
Sure.
But you got to do that because, as you said, numbers, you know. And as far as you asked earlier about strategic partners, we got, for example, we had Christmas trees in our movie. So we got in touch with an artificial Christmas tree manufacturer and said, hey, would you like to have your Christmas trees in our movie so we can brand them and you can talk about this? And they agreed. So they put out in their newsletter, they put out, oh, look, this Christmas movie is raising money. And it didn't cost us a thing, and we got free Christmas trees out of it, and we gave them credit in the movie, and for also and some other things too. I forget what, but you know, you find people like that, and that was not much work at all because there were only certain things that we could use. But that's what movies do: product placement. So that's a particular strength of our industry. You know, if you see somebody drinking a can of Coke, and oh look, the hero's drinking a can of Coke, it's, you know, it's everybody knows product placement. So we did some of that, and they got out to their audience, and it didn't cost us anything, and it was very time effective. We didn't track them. We're not sure if we got any investments out of it, but you know, can't hurt, and took only a couple of hours to do.
Sure. And did any of those partners promote during the crowdfunding campaign, or you know, anyone else involved in the film directly?
We got casual mentions because Equity Crowdfunding was even more new, because this is 3 years ago. People were not comfortable promoting investments because it was an unknown to them.
Right.
You know, so the only way I don't know, you probably know better than me, but I think that strategic partners would have to be more savvy, you know, and more enmeshed in your industry that you're raising for. I'm guessing, because it didn't. I think by now maybe that'll change. I don't know. What's it looking like now as far as strategic partners?
Yeah, we try to get everyone involved to talk about the offering page. You know, as far as what you can say, what you can't. We try to stay in our lane for marketing. Again, everyone's wearing a different hat in the team. And point towards legal to make sure everything is following the rules, and there's, you know, no forward-looking statements or anything that could be you know, gray down the line. But beyond that, the more people talking about the campaign in a positive way, the better. And if a founder is putting together a list, let's say, of 200 first-degree connections, friends, family, past you know, employees, past coworkers, going back to when they're in college and other students they're in school with, you know, really stretching that out and sending emails, we're anticipating a higher level of response, a higher level of investment from there. If that's being if that's being multiplied by, you know, 10, 20 team members, and we're getting to, you know, thousands of different first degree connections, you know, through a culmination of all of their audiences, it just becomes that much more powerful. I've seen those first messages saying, hey, back this campaign at any level you can. And, you know, more importantly, please share these 2 requests with everyone that you know. And that social sharing element goes to the growth of the crowd to great degrees.
Right. And one thing that we did do is we would send out to friends and acquaintances we would ask them to just share the campaign, just to share the page of the campaign or the Facebook, because just, even if people are not in a position to invest, just sharing it is really valuable.
David, was curious for, any listeners which heavily consist of founders, marketing professionals, and some investment crowdfunding professionals as well too, on all sides of the different table, many different disciplines. If they're working on the plans for a campaign or even have a live offering at the moment, what marketing recommendations could you provide? What should they test out in terms of messaging channels, different audiences to go after, any tactics as a whole? What should they be testing?
Well, as far as reaching out, go to, authoritative places, people who, if they talk about your campaign, they carry a weight of authority, and that really helps to get larger investments. As far as testing with marketing, Facebook was our number one. Because I found that this was told to me by people who know far better than I do, that Facebook at this point is really the only place to put your money, because Google ads and things like that are for people who are searching for something. They'll find it in a Google ad, whereas Facebook is for people to discover something. And our biggest hurdle with our campaign was education. Still today, nobody knows what the heck equity crowdfunding is. You'll mention equity crowdfunding and they'll go, oh, like Kickstarter? No, and so you have to, there always is an explanation. Our number one performing Facebook ad was a video, a minute-long video, animated, where the character walked through an investment and exactly what it was, just explaining equity crowdfunding in a very lighthearted way. And that got a huge reaction. Our ad has since been copied by several other people. So it's just really effective. Education is a huge hurdle because you're introducing a brand new concept to people. They don't know what it is. Okay. And so you have to get them to understand it, then to go to your campaign page.
If they don't understand it, they're not going to trust it. They're certainly not going to share it. We want the audiences to know about the offering in a way that is so clear that they can tell their family, their closest friends. They can get other people to get involved, where, if the technology is beyond them, if the whole structure on how the equity works is outside of their understanding, even if you get them to invest, they're not, or even you get them to consider, they're not going to be talking about it with anyone else.
Yeah, for example, we tried, on Facebook, you can choose a lot of audiences for your ads. We targeted, we thought, well, this is a family Christmas movie. It's not a faith-based movie, but it's family Christmas. So we targeted people over 60 who are conservative and watched Fox News and these other things. We thought, well, this is family-oriented conservative people. We spent, we reached out and targeted them. We got nothing. And we figured out it was because those older audiences don't understand investing online. They're still afraid to use their credit card on Amazon. I don't know. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but so it just wasn't the right, they may have liked what we were doing, our movie, but the method of investing is too much for them to grasp. People that age who understand online investing are already online. They're already there, they're already looking at Start Engine and WeFunder and Republic. So, which is great because they've got resources, they've got money. And we did have older investors, certainly, but finding them on Facebook was not the way to do it. So that was an example of testing and optimizing, and no, they're not our audience. The same thing is we didn't target people under 30. Because they don't, if they've got an extra $100 lying around, they're not investing it. Right. Okay? They're going to go do. So you got to invest over certain, you find your audience. So it's the testing and operating. Find who has the resources to invest and wants to. And we had middle class and upper middle class people who were looking actively for something different to invest in. If they wanted boring and safe, they'd be in treasury bills. And I'm sure they did have some of their money there. But if they want something interesting and fun, something engaging, then they're going to invest in, security robots, Christmas movies, there's CBD companies. There's a woman who successfully raised a good deal of money with Equity Crowdfunding for a tampon of the month club. So she had a solid business plan. And that's another thing, that people, their eyes glaze over if they're not already in this business. They think business plan, oh no. And it's just like, what are you going to do? Just write down what you're going to, I'm going to raise money. I'm going to make this company and I'm going to make money this way. That's a business plan.
Yeah. No, they're great examples to bring up. I think we worked with that tampon company, by the way. And it all starts in the plan and defining your audience, defining a few audiences to A/B test at that, and why they're going to invest, what portion of the portfolio it's going to fulfill, the actual psychographs in terms of what is going to resonate for them, and being able to validate it with the data. And I love how you said that's how you optimize. Are there any tactics that listeners could take in terms of optimizations? I find a lot of groups get in touch with us when things aren't working, which aren't working can mean many things. If they're trying to hit 1.07 million and they're a couple 100,000 in, they could tell us it's not working, that they've done some Facebook ads, maybe some other content channels, and been written up a few times on top of their emails. But to be able to take the findings, make sense of them, and change up the formula and manage it to a point of effectiveness from there is much more difficult. I know you have the Equity Crowdfunding Masterclass. What are some of the notes that you guys have there for how to improve the performance of a campaign?
Well, I put together this masterclass because after my campaign, I got calls from producers all over the world asking, how'd you do that? And
how do I do that?
I'm happy to share, but I only have so much time. So, the thing is, if I can do it, you can do it. I'm no genius. I'm not an idiot, but if you put in the work, it's about the same work as a Kickstarter campaign with just a little more paperwork. So I wanted to put in all my lessons and the lessons that I learned as I did this, because they're absolutely doable. And the first, I don't mean to be tricky about this, but the first optimization that I would do is your campaign video. We did different iterations of our video and different edits and showed it to other people. And we got feedback on that video. Should it be longer? Should it be more in depth? Should it be lighter? Should it be, we tried a lot of different things, because when that video is up, it's up. You can't change it. And on that campaign page, and that is your pitch. That is the number one place that people are going to get a sense of you. Now, it doesn't have to be you, the CEO, in the video. It can be just a voiceover with footage. It can, professional voiceover, please. And it could be, somebody in your marketing department in the video. I am always an advocate of showing a team. If you've got a team of 4 people on the board, or your product specialist, whoever, show a team of people, unless you're really into like the lone wolf image, which can really work. People go, oh, this guy looks like a genius, I'm going to invest because he's just this one guy. But most often it's a team that does it. People feel, oh, look, they like each other. They're working together. That's good. So optimize that video. Don't be stingy on the amount of time it takes you to do the video. And you have to strike a balance between relatable, and you don't want it too slick. Not an infomercial. Okay. You want to genuinely connect with your audience, however that's going to be. It can be, stock shots of footage and things like that. If that's your message, that's fine. You don't have to all have the same video, but optimize that video, because when you're spending all this time, all this money working with people like you to get people, drive people to that webpage, if that campaign isn't the best, then all that marketing is just a waste, because your conversion rate really, really depends on that dang video and your campaign page. So does that fall under your optimization?
Absolutely. You could drive as many eyeballs as possible. And if the video isn't converting, it's not going to make a difference. And I know we've talked about before some different mistakes that you've seen in video. And yes, that's definitely a great place to be able to focus optimizations. And what about surprises? Were there, different things that were outside of what you were expecting when running this campaign?
Yeah, you know what? There were two big surprises. Number one is lawyers were my best friend. Most people, I guess, you have an opinion. There's so many lawyer jokes, and you just think, oh, if I need a lawyer, I'm in trouble. But when there are certain, documents that you need to make, the offering and other things as you go along. And I thought, oh, I'm going to have to deal with these lawyers. And they were so supportive. They would answer questions, email on the weekends and things like that. And they know this is an infant industry, the equity crowdfunding. And so we talked to these securities lawyers, and they were like the secret weapon. They really helped me to go forward, to see what I was trying to do. And they showed me the best way to do it from a legal standpoint. So tremendous comfort in knowing, hey, legally, they've got my back. I ended up spending only about $2,500 total the whole time on lawyers. Now, if you're raising, the more money you raise, the more you need. But don't be afraid of it. Don't just download some form on the internet instead of a lawyer. So I was surprised that lawyers, I used 3 different lawyers for 3 slightly different things. Lawyers were the good guys. That's a surprise. Sorry to be stereotypical about that, but it was a good thing. And the other thing is, and this may be particular to me, I don't know, but I was worried that if I did this campaign, this video, all this stuff, that I was going to have to be a sales guy. I was going to be a Mr. Salesman, like I'm selling a, timeshare in a condo or used cars, and have to be something like that. And that just really scared me. I thought, oh, I don't want to, that's not who I am. So I was very, very pleased and a little surprised to find out that the more you are just yourself, the better it is, the more people connect, the more money you're going to raise. Whereas if you're, kind of smarmy and slick, people don't invest in that. They don't trust it. They don't like it. I know I don't. And I thought I'd have to turn on that, and learn how to be all, slick and infomercial and stuff like that. And I don't know if this is relatable or not, but the more we were just like, this is who we are. This is what we're doing. If you like what we're doing and you want to do it with us, here's how. I mean, that's the short version of it, but that's what we did. And people did connect. And I looked at other campaigns and I realized those are the campaigns I like. There's some guy is like, hey, I invented this thing and it works and we're going to sell it. I'm like, oh, okay. He wasn't all like, I am the future of engineering and, and dramatic music. He was just being the guy who invented it and doing his business, whether they're a chocolate company, whatever they are. The more they are just the nice, friendly version of themselves to connect with the audience, the more money you're going to raise.
Absolutely. More relatable, more trustworthy, those slick type of pitches. It's not a team someone necessarily wants to be a part of or thinks is, sustainable, going to be around. I wholeheartedly agree with that. I know that's what we try to do. And there's a lot of bad reputation for agencies and slick pitches and things that don't come to life. So by us being on the phone and saying exactly what we're going to do, where there's inherent obstacles for fundraising and for marketing, but what we feel confident about, where the variables are going to lie, it's a much more relationship building exercise than if we go in and talk about how great we are. I really believe in that transparency word and putting that at the forefront for these type of campaigns. And yes, no, please add.
Dealing with marketing, because when I did research and contacted a bunch of marketing people and Facebook advertising agencies to figure out who to go with. And it was interesting because I contacted like 6 or 7 of them and they all did the same pitch. There would be a conference call with 3 people on their end, from different departments. I'm the head of this department, I'm the head of that department, and they would give the same pitch, every agency. And I thought, wow, this is interesting. This must be like a thing that they get everybody on the line, so you feel like you're getting a big team or what, I don't know what. And the ones I ended up hiring were the ones who identified the potential problem areas to overcome to reach my audience. And I thought, problem solvers. Yes.
Yep. Yes. I define good marketing as good problem solving.
Yes.
Because any campaign has it, and whoever can be the most creative and effective at that, that's where real marketing talent lives.
Yes. And some business genius, I don't know who it was, once said, learn to love your problems because they're the only thing you can be certain that you'll always have.
That is a good quote right there.
Yeah, I mean, wow.
Your problems.
But that's the thing. When I did one of those panels, I did a panel at a really huge event, big conference hall, and there were these other people on the panel from these really big companies, a big vodka company, all these other companies who had done equity crowdfunding and raised tons and tons of money. And when I talked about my campaign and the simple things that I learned to do to gain market share, afterwards I got a lot of questions from the audience because I think people could relate to me because these guys were Wharton Business School. I mean, they were really, good. But when we went backstage, not to brag, but we went backstage to the green room, one of them came up to me and he said, that thing that you did, David, with that influencer, the way you found that influencer, that was smart. That was a smart thing you did. I go, oh, well, thank you very much. And we chatted. And then another fellow comes up and he says, hey, that thing you did with the other thing, that was smart. And I go, you did a smart thing. And I go, oh, thank you very much. And another one, like 3 people. And afterwards I thought, well, it's nice that they appreciate that. But I also noticed they used the same phrase. They said, I did a smart thing. They didn't say, David, you're smart.
The thing you did was genius. Smart.
They just said, you did a smart thing. And I thought, I totally get that, because you don't have to be a genius to do a smart thing. You have to be just smart enough to figure out a smart thing, or smart enough to hire people who do smart things. So
don't have to be a genius to do a smart thing. I like that. And I mean, even going back to the strategy and being able to competitor audit and see these smart things and then be able to reapply them for your campaign as proven methods.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why I did the Equity Crowdfunding Masterclass, because I list all the smart things. I explain all the smart things I did. I have the biggest chapter in my class. It's 5 hours long of 10 videos, 10 campaign videos that I analyze second by second, explaining exactly what they did right, exactly what they did wrong, and why they raised only X amount of dollars and why they raised a lot of money. I explained that if they just tweaked this and tweaked that and tweaked this thing right here, they could have raised twice, 10 times as much money. Because I studied it for 3 months like the obsessive person that I am. But that's the longest chapter in my course is, if you just take the time to just make sure you don't do this and you do this, these little tiny things, there's no one big secret. People say, well, it's a secret. How'd you raise $1 million? What's the secret? There's no one big secret. There's just a series of steps. If you do them correctly, appraising yourself along the way, which is what we did, then, and your company is a solid business model, you're not doing something that makes no business sense. If you're doing something that makes business sense and you do the correct, enough of the right steps, it's really hard to not raise the money.
I've seen these tools get to that point of consistency, that point of effectiveness, not for the full cap every time, but for a strong return and following the model. I know you said there's no secret, but have to ask, were there any commonalities in these most successful campaigns in terms of how they scaled? Any insights in terms of how a founder could scale? And as I mentioned in one of our conversations before, it's a question we're getting asked every day right now, because the limit's about to increase from 1.07 million to 5 million on March 15th. So everyone wants to know how to scale at this point. Were there any findings that any listener should take particular note of?
One of the big things about scaling is the momentum. When you get momentum, it just goes, wow. You know, you've done all the work, and now it's doing it on its own, and it's coming. The money's coming in. And one of the ways I saw to get momentum is we did 2 campaigns back to back. We closed one campaign, and 2 weeks later launched another campaign. And when the first campaign was going to close, and we put the notice on there, and we sent out the emails, campaign is closing in 5 days. The money just goes like that because people have to act. Okay, so it just doubled. In 5 days, the amount raised doubled.
That fear of missing out.
Yeah. And that's where the email list comes in, really handy. Excuse me. And so finding ways to create urgency for the investor, that is the key in your particular business. Finding an urgent way to get people on board by offering something now that they will not get later. You're going to get 5% more for your shares now or whatever. Finding those things to get the urgency creates momentum and goes up. And once the momentum is created, it will go on its own. Then nurturing that Facebook audience, sending out emails to current investors, telling them, tell your friends. This is trains leaving the station. Tell your friends. Those are the things that it's that magical thing, momentum. And again, it's that attitude in the video, the attitude of we are going places. This is happening. This is cool. Without saying that, but that's the message.
Yeah.
That's the thing that gets people, they want to be part of. Cool. Create something people want to be part of was the big common thing that I saw, and finding the people who are the kind of people who want to be part of it.
Yes. Finding the people, making it something they want to be a part of, and leveraging those right channels to have the right repetition to close them before those final days. But really, utilizing everyone who's on the line. They're watching. There's a few days left, and they have to get involved before it's too late.
And the commonality was making the right kind of campaign for what you're doing. A guy was raising money for something called Heroin the Movie. It's about the heroin epidemic in West Virginia, a documentary. Now, that's a tough sell. That's a very serious subject. It's a very tough sell. And he was the only guy in the video, and he was outside, and you could see he's out it's West Virginia, that kind of terrain. And he talks about it, and he's very passionate about how horrible this is. And he really wants to do something about it and raise awareness about it. And when you watch this man talk, he is so on message for his type of video that he completely convinces you to do this. So the movie, yes, was for profit, but it was also passion. If you can find the passion people, that also creates the momentum. So his message fit the product. If you're selling swimming pools, you have a different message than you do if you're selling a movie about heroin. Stay on message. And our video was about Christmas and family and fun, because that's our movie.
And creating the emotion. Be on message, create that emotion, create that emotional response to have that engagement and action to follow. And David, just to begin wrapping up here, wanted to see if you had any closing recommendations, closing thoughts. I imagine you can end just with be on message, but anything else you want to add for the listeners today?
The biggest message really is this is so doable. If you just want to go on and raise $50,000 for your very small business, you can do it. Just look at it, do it. You'll raise that without doing ads if you have a good business model. The investors currently online, you could get that much money. If you want to raise serious money, you know, 6 figures, millions, that is also incredibly doable. If you can envision that and find the right people, and you have enough people in your organization, or you can hire enough people to do it full time, because it is a full-time job. It took 6 months of us full time, me and my partner, to do it. It's so doable. It just stuns me. I'm in show business. I'm not a business guy. I saw this and I go, I can do this. And the Securities and Exchange Commission, I never thought I would have to deal with the Securities and Exchange Commission in my life. They made this law so people like us can do it. Mm-hmm. Okay, I am rarely impressed with government agencies, but they really, really doing a great job. I had a concern. There was a little glitch in something that was with one of the companies I was dealing with. And I thought, this doesn't look right. And I contacted the governing board. They got back to me within the hour and fixed it. So I was like, wow. So
efficient.
Yes. And there's been zero fraud in this area, you know, and it's just because it's for people who just want to raise money for their business. Now you can get up to 5 million.
Yes.
Bigger businesses will also be doing it, but it's still geared towards the common investor. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how else to say it. I'm not a motivational coach person, kind of. All I can say is, man, it works. Find the right people to work with, find your team, and then go out and find the people who want to be part of your business. And remember, it's not a donation. It's not Kickstarter. It's not GoFundMe. When you do your campaign, don't use words. These other mistakes. I thought people say, support us,
right.
Give us money. They use phrases like give and support. No, it's an investment. They're partnering with you. It's not charity. Yeah. So it's doable. That's all I can say. I don't know if that's a great catchword or not, but
it is doable. I like it. And you say you're not a motivational speaker, but that is sure motivational to me. I'm sure for many of our founders as well. In fact, if any of them would like to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do so? What's your preferred channel?
Oh, well, they can go to equitycrowdfundingmasterclass.com, and you can fill out an email in there and email me, or just email me directly. Equity Crowdfunding at usmpco.com. usmpco.com stands for United States Motion Picture Company, which is my movie company. So Equity Crowdfunding at usmpco.com, or just go to equitycrowdfundingmasterclass.com and you can contact me through there. As you can see, I like to talk. I'm happy to give advice, you know, because people certainly gave me advice, and, you know.
And I highly encourage you to do so. Don't take that offer lightly. David, it's been an honor to have you here today. Thanks for sharing all of this with us. And everyone listen in. Appreciate it. We'll see everyone next time.
Thank you, Jason. Keep doing what you're doing.
Will do.
Bye.